Hello and welcome to the Cardiac Cats YouTube channel. I am your host, Jacob Shorba, and we are here for what is going to be our post Senior Bowl mock draft. Now, here's the caveat, all right? We are not picking any players in this draft who did not participate in the Senior Bowl. Probably not also picking players who went to the Shrine Bowl, but we're going to focus on the guys we've really watched this last week and get to talk about them, right? Now, I already started this. I'm going to go ahead and go back and restart. It's really not going to matter, honestly, because as fun as the Senior Bowl is, it's very rare that you have any prospect who would go before pick 5, right? It's just kind of the way it goes. This is for people who are trying to improve their stock. This is for players who have been around more than, say, 3 years in college in all those different situations. So I will just rerun this. You're going to get probably the exact same result, basically. No Senior Bowl players off the board. So I am going to do a 7-round mock draft just so we get to talk about more players, especially because there were some guys who I think were really low, maybe in the consensus, that had a good week. So this is going to be our opportunity to do that. So with that all said, we're going to go ahead and start. This is essentially just going to be a question of who was the best player, ultimately, coming out of the Senior Bowl. Who would I rank as my number one prospect that attended? So your options here, at least in my opinion, it does start with Mike Green for me. You could also throw out, well, see, Kenneth Grant, he's a Shrine Bowl guy, so he's not going to be in this. But Shamar Stewart, he's another guy who's a first-round prospect at this point. Armand Membu, he was unfortunately sick, I believe, was not able to participate, so he's not going to count here either. But Josh Connerly Jr., he was someone who I think got better throughout the week. A fine prospect. Obviously, I don't think we're getting someone who's worth this pick, just given how high we're picking and the kind of situation we're in. Last year made a little more sense because, well, you could take like Quinyon Mitchell at number 17. But we are obviously a lot earlier in the draft order. Donovan Ozuraku, someone who had a good week as well. He's a good football player. Wyatt Milam, Gray Zabel are some names that I think I would have pretty high on my board. Zabel probably is higher for me at this point. We'll see where things shake out. That's kind of all you're really considering here. You do have some other guys I could keep talking about. But for pick number 5, it's kind of down to one of those names. And I think very clearly for me, if I have to pick a Senior Bowl guy to select here, it's got to be Mike Green. So talking about Mike Green for a second, you've got a guy who he was the lead producer in sacks this year in college football. He improved tremendously as a run stuffer this year. He's been phenomenal in that regard. He was someone that there were concerns about size-wise coming into the Senior Bowl. He's supposed to be 6'3". Some people thought he might be in the 230s. He ends up being 251, a little bit bigger than expected. The arm length isn't great. It's about 32 inches, just over that. So it is a little bit below the threshold you'd like. So there are some limitations. But Mike Green, the size he plays with, as far as mass, I think he fills out his frame very well. You saw some phenomenal power this week. He was someone who was blowing up blockers. You saw it against Josh Connerly, for example. Just completely destroyed him to the point where, as I mentioned in my recap video, like the guy went on Twitter after to stand up for Josh Connerly after he got destroyed on the play, being like, yeah, this guy's still going to be a good player in the NFL. Like, that's how good Mike Green did at the Senior Bowl. He had a phenomenal week. I think just out of everyone who attended, this would have to be the top guy for me. Now, once again, are we able to take a player here that's worth the 5th overall pick? I don't think that's the case, obviously. But if we're trying to take the best player and are limiting ourselves to Senior Bowl prospects, I think it's Mike Green. I don't think it's particularly close either. Because if it was, maybe we go another way, right? And say, hey, maybe this position's so much more of a need than what edge is that we do that. But, looking at like Josh Connerly, it's tackle, right? Tackle is not a need for this team. You have two starters there. It'd be hard to make an argument for that. Walter Nolan was someone who had a good week, but is he that close to Mike Green for me? He's not. Just to be honest, Gray Zabel, he's going to be a guard for you. So less important position. Also a player that I don't think is as good as Mike Green. Just putting it simple. So this is easily the pick for me here at number 5. We're only going off Senior Bowl prospects. So we'll see what falls. We're not going to do any trading in this, so I'm just going to go ahead and speed this up. So we'll get straight to our next pick. We've got some options here. We've got some legit options. So you look at Wyatt Milam. I think he had kind of a mixed week. Unfortunately, I saw a lot of losses watching him. Gray Zabel was someone I thought did a phenomenal job. Played really well this week. He's open to playing really any position on the offensive line. He confirmed that to me when I interviewed him. It's just a player that I think you can bring in and make that right guard position sound for the duration of his rookie contract and however long you keep him past that. It's a great prospect. I think Omar Norman Lott was someone who was very impressive as well. The athleticism is incredible. Now, I don't have him, and once again, I got to update my big board. I have not got to that since the Senior Bowl happened. So kind of just winging this. But Omar, I'm definitely going to put higher on my board. I just don't think he's going to go higher than what, say, like Gray Zabel does. So this one for me, you look at Zabel. Jack Betch had a really good week as well. It's worth noting. The other guy who would be in consideration for me, you could say Harold Fannin Jr., you could say Jalen Royals. Some players you could throw out. But Maxwell Hairston would be a phenomenal option here. I think this is someone who could legit sneak into the first round of the draft. Someone who can play man or zone. He's shown the ability to do that. I think he's going to be a fine run defender. And he's someone who's going to be a good leader for this team. So for me, I think Maxwell Hairston and Gray Zabel are the very clear options that I would be looking at. Now, it's a hard choice, right? And these are both guys I got to interview. You guys can check out that video. It's been posted on YouTube by this point. It's also on my Twitter. When I think of both of these guys, I would go with Hairston. I think he's going to be a really good corner. You obviously have a big need there. I think either way you go, you're getting a really good player here. Really good player. But this is someone who makes a lot of sense for Jacksonville. I don't really worry too much about where this run grade is. I think he's going to be a little bit better than that. He does need to put on a little bit of mass, but this is someone who could be a really good corner regardless of the scheme that you're running. So we're going to go with Hairston. I know a lot of people would probably say Zabel. I've seen Zabel a bunch at this pick as well. We are going to do something a little bit different. But honestly, this is kind of 50-50. You can even throw in a name like Deone Walker, who, I don't know if I'll have him this high, but he's going to be a really good nose tackle in the NFL. And this is around where T'Vondre Sweat went. So it wouldn't be shocking to see Walker go that high. But Maxwell Hairston's going to be our pick at 36. Oh, man. Got some good options here. Got Harold Fannin Jr. I think would be one of the top ones for sure. Of course, you have two tight ends here. So is that a need? You can move on from Evan Ingram if you want, but, you're adding and you're subtracting. So it's worth noting, Ozzie Trapilo and Arante Ursary, two players who I think did well this week. Definitely worth a pick around this range. Ozzie, I won't say that as much for, though, just because I have not done the full evaluation on him yet. Other names, Deone Walker we mentioned before. Josiah Stewart, I think he had a pretty good week. Played well. Obviously, we got Mike Green, though. It's probably not a direction we're going. You've got a lot of Senior Bowl names here. I think continue to look down this board. RJ Harvey is another name we're hearing linked to Jacksonville right now. See if anyone is hiding down this board that stands out. Once again, you're going to see a lot of Senior Bowl names. I'm going to go past here. Emory Jones maybe is worth noting. I think we're going to go back. Look at who these top options were. Unfortunately, Jalen Royals is gone. He would have been my pick. Pretty much for sure. Wouldn't have been an issue. I think Harold Fannin would be heavily in consideration. Dion Walker definitely would fill in a need. Those guys would be very close for me as to where I'd have him ranked. Marcus and Bo, I think he had a mixed week. I think you just kind of saw the same stuff from him. And we have mocked him here, so I probably will pass on it for that reason. And I also want to kind of give a shout out to some of the players who stood out. Which is more so the point of this than saying, obviously this is not like a super realistic mock draft. We took Mike Green at number 5. RJ Harvey, I'd say, probably a tad early to make that pick. Azariah Thomas, we took corner. So it's going to come down to Dion Walker or Harold Fannin Jr. for me. I think, it's really close. Dion is going to be someone who has tremendous upside. I think it fills a need on this defensive line as well. You look at as grades, obviously he's got room to improve, but there's a lot of upside with him. Whereas Harold Fannin Jr., I don't think it's as much of a need. I would probably have him ranked about the same, if not a tad higher than Dion Walker. Well, we'll obviously see where that is in the future. I think with this situation, Walker probably makes a tad more sense. So we are going to go back to Kentucky once again. Maybe he knows Liam Cohen. I'm sure he does. And that'll be our pick. So now at pick number 88. See our options. RJ Harvey, once again. I don't think he would have to go this early, but he is probably going to get taken this early, just with the way the simulator runs. Jarquez Hunter, I think, had a pretty good week. See some other players here. Pat Bryant might be a favorite for Jaguars fans, just given that he is someone who has the Jaguars as his favorite football team. Not afraid to say it. I think Jackson Hawes would be a solid addition to the tight end room for the right price. Emory Jones is definitely, I would say definitely enticing for an option. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see him much at guard this week. I don't know why. That's where he's probably going to project in the NFL. It's based off the way he's played. So I would say Emory Jones is definitely one of the options. Upton Stout had a phenomenal week too, but obviously we've got corner filled. Darius Alexander, it's someone, maybe we take him later just for BPA. But I have not got to watch him super close. Hunter Wohler is also someone I like. I would say this would come down to RJ Harvey or who's the guy we had on this page? RJ Harvey or Emory Jones Jr. I think my concern with Jones is I don't know how he's going to project at guard. I was not particularly thrilled with how this week went, unfortunately. So I think considering that and that he might be gone even earlier than this, we're going to say that we're going to pass on him and we're going to get the guy that Liam Cohen is apparently rumored to like in this class. That might be his next Bucky Irving. We're going to get that in RJ Harvey, a super productive running back coming out of UCF. He's a shorter guy. That is the concern here. He's a very small player, but He's a I think he's a very effective player. The blocking side of things might be my only question just because of size. But I think this is someone who could do really well in the NFL. Just kind of feel like that's how things are probably going to go. So he's our pick. Let's see what we still got here on the board. Jalen Noel would be someone I think would stand out at this point. You talk about Mason Taylor, too. I know people are going after him because of a route I posted this week, unfortunately. Seems like every year it happens with someone. Jake Brenningstool is another tight end that'd be nice. Trevor Etienne, I think, is a really good part of a committee. Unfortunately, I think he kind of got that style of player already. So a lot of guys I'd take if this was not just a Senior Bowl video. Obviously, Emory Jones would be the pick if he was an option for us. And so just keep that in your mind. If he's available now, we would do it. Ollie Gordon II, we already went running back. I think he's gone anyway. And I have serious concerns about pass protection for him. Tommy Hill could be a nice zone corner. Upton Stout, man, he might be someone we take later just for the upside. Looks like a Darius Alexander size. So 6'4", 310. We've added Deion Walker. So we've already got a bigger player. I think Darius, with his size, probably could play both defense tackle and nose tackle. We also got Anais Peebles here. He would fit more as a defensive tackle, I would say, penetrating type, which I don't think I can recall anyone the Jaguars have that's very effective in that regard. So I think Peebles or Alexander could definitely be options at this point for the team. Hunter Wohler might be the way we go, though. I know this is not someone who gets talked about a ton. But right now, right now, Jacksonville, you have Andre Cisco, who is a free agent. He's a free safety, primarily. You have Darnell Savage, who I would also consider a free safety. You don't really have, I think, like a good, strong safety on this team. And I think Hunter Wohler, while he's getting overlooked a bit in this class, is like a legitimate starting caliber, good, strong safety. I think he's a smart player. I think he's phenomenal in run defense. It's what you've seen throughout his career. In coverage, I feel like how he performed at the Senior Bowl alleviated some athletic concerns I had for him. So we're going to do something a little bit different here. We're going to make Hunter Wohler the pick. I don't see anyone else necessarily on this page that I would go after. So that's going to be what we do here once I find his name again. Also, shout out to Anthony Belton. He had a really good... He'll probably be a pick here for us. Alright, so pick 124. This is kind of where some of these players probably aren't here. This board's going to change a lot. I'm obviously recording this right after the Senior Bowl practices have concluded. I think Jackson Hawes is very much in consideration at this point. Emory Jones Jr., once again, easily would be the pick if I thought he would even fall to day 3. And it's possible. He could have the kind of fall that Leonard Taylor last year, where it just goes from first-round guy to undrafted. It is entirely possible. But we've kind of committed to saying he's not going to be one of the guys we take. I'm going to say, let's go with an exciting new name. Someone who had a great week. I could go with Anais Peebles. But I'm going to go with Darius Alexander. We're going to get a Toledo guy in here. Do this again. Last year we had Quinion. This year we're going to get Darius. Get another defensive tackle to add to this group. You got your nose tackle. Now you get someone who's able to play maybe a little bit more of defensive tackle. Could probably play inside at the nose as well if you need that. 90.3 grade in run defense. Really impressive. So we're going to give him a little bit of a shout out here. We've got 3 picks left. Trevor Etienne's very tempting. It's fallen pretty far. But I think you have a very similar running back already. Upton Stout just might be a really nice player to add into the slot. I know we have Jarion Jones. That's kind of a concern there. But at this point, like, I think needs kind of go out the window eventually. And we're obviously kind of limiting ourselves on what positions we can address. This isn't something where, like, we have to go by that. I want to shout out, just generally the best players from the Senior Bowl. Anthony Belton, I think he's got to play tackle. I don't think he kicks inside. It's the only concern here. But Belton could be really fun. How is he projected? The scheme, though? Probably the question. He's probably going to have to get on the move a lot. Man, if Kobe Bryant was an option, I'd be all over that for sure. But he's a Shrine Bowl guy. Jalen Rivers was someone at the Senior Bowl. What else we got here? We're going to go all the way down this list. This list is going to get thrown on its head. All right, kickers and punters. So let's go back. Very first. I think Trevor Etienne's an option. Jonah Monheim, I haven't mentioned really throughout this. I think he could be an okay pick here. I just don't think he had that great of a week. I have serious concerns if he can play in the NFL just because of the anchor. I think the anchor was a major issue for him throughout the entire week. Our other options that we had, Tommy Hill could be a corner to bring in. Kind of depends if you're running a zone scheme, though. I think that's where he's best. For me, this comes down to an Upton Stout type of player or bringing in Anthony Belton. I think Stout would be a great fit for what you want to do here, especially if you're running man coverage. I think he just proved himself this week. He's also someone you look at his history. Yeah, he played mostly slot this last year. That's probably where he needs to be. But he has played outside before. So this isn't a pick to really go get someone who's necessarily starting for you. But you bring in a player who is just really good at this point and probably shouldn't be available here as someone who deserves a shout out because the way he played this week, he was a super sticky corner, just locking down everything. Right? Very rarely giving up separation. So we're going to give a shout out to him with this selection. Now pick 182. See what we got. Anthony Belton's still here. It's definitely a good option. Clay Webb's also here. Didn't watch him super close this week, but he was out at the Senior Bowl. See. Drew McCoy's in there, one same thing. Didn't watch super close. Might be kind of running out of options here with what they give us, unfortunately. Yeah, it looks like that's the way this is going. So, let's go with... who do I have? Anthony Belton. So, I would wonder how he would fit in the scheme. Might be a little bit of a concern, but he should be gone day 2, in my opinion. Should not have fallen nearly this far. May not be a great fit for what we do here, but someone that maybe you can, improve that, work on that, and eventually figure something out with. And gives you tackle depth, which is something I do think this team needs to improve if it can. Now, last options here. Honestly, we're kind of out of players that I watched super close this week. Donovan Edwards could be a name to throw a pick on. I don't think he's nearly to the level of what you would have expected for a cover athlete for a college football game, just being honest. But he had a really good week, I felt like, in pass protection, what he offers there. I do think he's a solid running back. I don't think he's an incredible prospect, but you do need to add to that position. Right now, you would have Travis Etienne, Tank Bigsby, and RJ Hart. I don't know if you keep around Etienne. I don't know what the plan would be there. I think he's very much a player you could move on the trade block. Edwards is, kind of a tougher runner. This might concern me, maybe the zone grade, just because you're going to be running a lot more of that. So that might be a problem. Let's look one more time. See if we can find anything here. Once again, board is barren at this point. I can't even find players who are at the Senior Bowl. Until you get down here to like Ryan Fitzgerald. There's some good options there, like kicker and punter. It's just not going to be a need for Jacksonville. You have quarterbacks available. I mean, Jackson Dart should not be open at this point. I think Seth Hennigan was out there at the Senior Bowl. I did not watch him super close. Didn't see a whole lot of problems. Love the Memphis uniforms, I'll say that. Man, this is kind of a rough final pick. I think we're just going to have to go with someone here. So we do need a backup quarterback. It's worth noting. Don't have anyone there. Maybe take a shot on one of the Senior Bowl quarterbacks. They did all play pretty well this week. Let's do that. Let's pick Seth Hennigan here to wrap this thing up. So this is our all Senior Bowl mock draft for 2025. We'll go back and take a look at how this turned out. You're never gonna see a draft like this again for me. But you got pick number 5. You got Mike Green going here. Obviously, like I said, I think he was the best player at the Senior Bowl this week. Coming out of it, I would have him ranked the highest of everyone. You also had Maxwell Hairston. It was a battle between him and a couple other prospects, Jalen Royals being one of them, kind of hoping he fell. He went a couple picks before the Deion Walker selection. Obviously, like if we were talking about needs here, yeah, you missed the offensive line. This is not really the point of this mock draft. Once again, like we are just trying to talk about some players that Jacksonville could look at, regardless of trying to necessarily base everything perfectly around what we've selected before, but just guys who kind of stood out at the Senior Bowl, guys who are worth talking about. But I think you do a lot of work to your defensive line here. You get big improvements. You get your cornerback opposite of Tyson Campbell. You've got your safety to go alongside whoever you're starting at free safety. Hunter Wohler can be the strong safety. RJ Harvey, we're going to see if there's anything really to it fully with him being Liam Cohen's guy. I know the Yardline Yoda account has had some legit things. I also think some things get rushed. Just being honest. Like saying we know who the GM is before the GM search has even officially begun or, it's even been announced is a little crazy, right? But it sounds like RJ Harvey's a player who could fit. I could see it watching him. I think he played great this week. I think he had a really good week. And so it's a fair pick regardless. So you're adding to that running game. You get another, you got a bunch more players on the defensive side. This is a heavily defensive draft. Getting Anthony Belton as well at tackle. Maybe not a great scheme fit, but someone who should go day 2, in my opinion, at this point. And then Seth Hennigan as your future backup quarterback for the Jacksonville Jaguars. So just something fun here, right? Not an official mock draft from us. My plans for 2.0 are probably going to be to put that out once we know who the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator are, because right now, like, we don't know what scheme we're running on defense. We have no clue at this point. We could be running man, we could be running zone, we could be running 4-3, 3-4, we could be running 3-3-5, 4-2-5. Like, no one has a clue at this point what the plan is. So we'll have to see what happens once, I think, at least defensive coordinator is sorted out. Then we should be able to take a look back at this and do the next legitimate mock draft. So with that said, that's all I've got here. I appreciate you guys watching. We'll have hopefully some more content coming out here soon. I do got to start driving back, though, tomorrow, which is today for you guys if you're watching when this gets released. Going to start working on my big board, getting everything updated. A lot of changes that need to take place. A lot of prospects I got to add. A lot of stuff needs to happen. So yeah, that's the plan. But I appreciate y'all watching. Want to shout out our channel members: Premier Nasir 904, Nightmare Eco, Gator John Bites, and Scrubber Ducky 500. Once again, guys, memberships are available again. Finally back up. I know we had kind of a weird period there where they got shut off, but those are officially back. So if you want to become a channel member, all the information's on the screen. You can also just message me if you have any questions. But I appreciate all your support. Getting us to 1K subscribers this week was incredible. Such good timing, too. Driving to the first practice and seeing that hit 1,000 subscribers while I'm on the way there. It's just great stuff. I'm very appreciative for what you guys have supported here and what you've allowed me to do. So with that all said, enjoy your night. Enjoy the rest of this week, and we'll see what happens. We got a lot of things going on in Jacksonville to talk about, so we'll definitely be talking about them. But that's all I've got, and finally, go Jags.